myth of overpopulation originated in England in 1798, when a vicar named Thomas Malthus, who fancied himself something of a mathematician, saw that food production increased incrementally, but people reproduced exponentially. He sat down and did some simple math, and summarily decided that the world would be out of food by 1890. He blamed reduced mortality rates, and recommended killing off the have-nots of society, lest the haves starve to death. This cry was taken up by Paul Ehrlich of Stanford University in 1968, who claimed that reckless human reproduction had overwhelmed the Earth. Massive famines would result, which would destroy, best-case scenario, 1/5 of humanity by the end of the 70s, and the planet would follow. This fear produced large donations for the newly created UNFPA, which thrives on an imagined crisis that has been both imminent and rescheduled again and again over the past 2 centuries. The truth of the matter is that every family on this planet could have a house, with a yard, and all live together on a landmass the size of Texas, which is really just a small corner of the planet. The population of Earth will peak in 30 years, and then start to go back down. We're not overpopulated. Do the math. From the time of the cavemen all the way until today, humanity continues to exist because each generation of people has produced another generation to replace itself. Scientists have figured out how many people need to be born each generation to replace the generation before. That number is 1 person per person. All things being equal, this creates perfect demographic balance. Since women are the only ones who can have children, replacing every person on Earth means each woman needs to have 2 children, one to replace her, and the other to replace the man, who cannot have children. The total fertility rate is the average number of children each woman in a society is having. This number shows us if a society is growing or shrinking. In developed countries, the replacement rate birth rate is 2.1 children per woman. This will keep the population stable, but even that is assuming that every woman has children, and that there are no wars, famines, or disease. In the real world, disasters happen all the time, and sadly not all children reach adulthood, especially in poor countries. This pushes their replacement rate up to 3.3 children per woman. Since not every woman wants to have children, in order to keep the population stable, some women need to have more than 2.1 children to balance the birth rate with the women who are only having 1 or no children at all. Maintaining this balance is of the utmost importance. If society does not at least replace itself every generation, human numbers begin to fall exponentially. Economic and social problems appear, as elderly people retiring begin to outnumber young people entering the workplace. This is already happening all over the developed world. Many of the world's nations are only barely replacing themselves, while a growing majority have birth rates below replacement, some as low as 1.8 or even 1.2 babies per woman. Many societies are facing a very real danger: extinction. According to believers in overpopulation, there are so many of us on the planet that food production cannot possibly keep up. However, according to both the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization and the World Food Program, there is currently enough food on the planet for everyone to be well fed. Not only that, but we're growing this food on less land than we did in the past. This is why in the United States, for example, the government can afford to pay farmers not to grow food, but instead return their farmland to the wild. Modern technology also allows us to grow food on land where it would have been impossible to do so, even a few years ago. Agricultural experts even believe that Africa, if cultivated using modern farming methods, could eventually feed the whole world, all by itself. Then why are people in many parts of the world starving? The World Food Program lists key causes of hunger, and overpopulation is not on that list. War, one of the leading causes of world hunger, destroys crops and disrupts relief efforts. Widespread poverty prevents many from buying the food that they need, and a lack of infrastructure means that there isn't a reliable way to transport food to areas that need it. This is why reducing the number of hungry people will not make the remaining people less hungry. Those who have access to the food will continue to have access to it, and those who don't will still be hungry. Reducing population will not magically cause food to be spread around equally. And blaming overpopulation for everything does nothing but distract us from the real problems that we actually have. Think about it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, November 7th, 2011, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. Okay, this first article we have up is Truth Comes Out 2009 H1N1 flu pandemic deaths of children were actually caused by MRSA. And MRSA is one of those things they called, it's also called as, also known as a staph infection. And or some people call them superbugs. When I interviewed the health representative on campus when I was in school, it was called a superbug, and they were scaring everybody with it, with MRSA here, MRSA there. So it comes out that the flu pandemic was actually caused by this MRSA. Then we have hospital rooms crawling with drug-resistant germs as a study. And it goes in there and says nearly half of the samples were tested positive. Nearly half the rooms tested were colonized or infected with a multi-drug resistant bacteria. So of course we were all told to go get our pandemic vaccine made by, what was it, Baxter. And in reality it was being caused by that, by MRSA. And then what is the whole thing? You're supposed to go get your vaccinations. And it says here, end of the annual flu jab. And it says here, a single vaccine could protect against all strains of the virus for life. So it almost makes it wonder, end of the annual flu vaccine, as if, you know, we're going to stop taking the flu vaccines and let our immunity build up naturally. No, they're saying that actually you can just get one super stab of eugenics and you'll be good for life, and it'll take off about 10 to 20 years of your life. So that's actually what they're saying. Moving on here, we have potential loophole in vaccine law could mandate vaccines in children during declared emergency. So going down here, it says during an emergency, if a parent exercises a vaccine exemption, they can be placed into quarantine or isolation to, quote, protect the public. It says once the parent is placed into quarantine isolation, there is no guarantee that the unvaccinated parent and child will be remaining together in the same quarantine isolation area. So a parent can automatically lose his or her ability to provide guardianship to his or her minor child. And let's not forget in California that they're authorizing, was it 12-year-olds and that, 11-year-olds to take the Gardasil vaccine. They're allowing them consent to take those vaccines. Moving on here, so I mean basically they can eventually do that as well. China hospital disposes of live baby, says health authorities in South China said Friday they were investigating a hospital medical team for mistakenly diagnosing a stillbirth and disposing of a baby that was alive. Now that goes on in the United States as well, so it's not that shocking to Americans. I'm sure they're not that shocked. And said here, parents warned about mail order chicken pox lollipops. So remember the thing about be careful of the HIV test kits, you know, whereas you go to the hospital and you actually get fucking HIV from the hospital, right? I went through all those articles, right? So here, they don't want you to do this, right? So you can build up. I've never even heard of this. Actually, I don't know if I would actually have my children, if I had them, do it, or I would do it. I already had chicken pox, but I wouldn't need to. Anyways, what I'm saying is that ABC News and the experts, authorities, here we go, the authorities, your mommy and daddy, the government, and the doctors, the experts who are smarter than you and have to decide for you because you're too fucking stupid, right? You don't have enough brain cells to figure out what they're doing. They're trying to kill your children, take them away from you. You're too fucking stupid to realize this, aren't you? So they got to come in here and tell you that authorities and doctors are warning parents who want to avoid chickenpox vaccines for their children that a new mail order scheme, see, they're trying to avoid the death, right? They're trying to avoid the killing of their children, so they go to this. And they said here, the scheme to share lollipops licked by children infected with the disease as a way to create immunity in their kids is not only unsafe, but, oh, illegal! So, it's illegal too, so that must mean it's morally wrong. No, it doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. And it says it's unsafe. Well, let's see. All the vaccines that have mercury, thiamerosal, There's been all kinds of stuff that they've put in there, formaldehyde. I've seen the ingredients of some of these pandemic vaccines, and they're atrocious. And they're promoted by Baxter and your government. Actually, they use your tax dollars to pay for that eugenics scheme. See, I'll call it a scheme. You like that? It's called a scheme when the government does it too. But they call it a program. So, but either way, I think we all remember that movie, The Patriot, where, and this was, of course, disinformation. I think it was almost in every, not every movie or every film, but in most films, you're going to see two things that are disinfo. That is A, state schools. Got to set up the schools like Deadwood, like Jericho, like in The Patriot. And then the other thing is what? The vaccinations, right? Deadwood, Jericho. Then again, The Patriot, where they had the body rolling down, and it was someone that was infected, and they would scrape the blood off, whatever, and do that. So it's everywhere, and everywhere they will always have vaccinations being promoted in the guise of, quote, entertainment. In North Carolina, only 44 sterilization victims have been found so far. They've tracked down less than 3 dozen of the 10,000s of residents forced to undergo sterilization between 1979 and 1974. So see, this is the old way, where they actually would take the undesirables and just shoot them with this stuff, or try to kill them and not allow them to procreate. And but now they try to do it voluntarily. That's what the scientific dictatorship is. It's about sleight of hand. And you think that you're free and that you're living in a democratic society, but really your choices are already made for you. And so you have a lot of people going around thinking that this is the best thing to do, right? To take these vaccines, but really what you're doing is the same thing that they were forcing people to do a long time ago. So it actually just goes to show you that you're more of a slave now than the people were back then. Back then, people were a little more apprehensive to just do whatever these experts tell them to do, or the government. Girl 3 eats leftovers for 2 days after mom dies, and I'm surprised they didn't try to slap her with a lawsuit or put her dead body into jail for not taking care of her child. You know, it's about as ridiculous as the monks that burned themselves and then got arrested, thrown in the jail, and abducted for trying to kill themselves in protest of the Chinese regime. 12-year-old girl survives alone with dog for 6 months, plus children raised by dogs. Girl survives rabies without a vaccine, hospital says. And it says here, as a rare survivor of an infection without having received the life-saving vaccine. Ooh, But the real thing I'm trying to get at is what? Is that they can survive, man. We as humans are pretty interesting little creatures, because we can survive alone, whatever, without any training. It's in our that is in our genes to survive, to know what to do. But they don't want you to know that. It says here, air fresheners can trigger allergies and asthma. So we have this. Knee arthritis strikes at younger age. Weight loss may help. And then we have this. But what about this? Skeletal fluorosis from India. It says here, and it's kind of interesting. It's not funny, but it says here, while fluorosis is most severe and widespread in the 2 largest countries, they just happen to be in India and China. UNICEF estimates, right? Because those are the target countries, because they're the ones receiving the most fluoride. And it says 1 parts per million. Well, actually, there's some that actually are 1.5 parts per million, and you'd be surprised where those are at in urban areas and that. Okay, so Rahm Emanuel has Chicago skyline going purple for pancreatic cancer awareness. The first thing I thought was that what? So that slaves can drive around and say, oh, why are all the buildings purple, right? To build awareness. Build awareness to what? Pancreatic cancer. Oh, now you know. So what do? Oh, just give us your money. Oh, really? That's it? Yeah, just give us your money. It's a big business, cancer. It is. Remember, the powers that be always have multiple reasons for doing things. So not only will they kill you, but they'll get paid to kill you, right? It's a profitable business to kill you. Fans line up for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and it's interesting because they say that, come and fight, of course, for the New World Order, to fight for a life that you used to have. Well, they took it for you, so why would you fight for the people that took it away from you? Use of toxic lean meat powder widespread in China. Then next up is yeast extract, a taste-enhancing additive lurking in natural foods, MSG. New rules will turn milk lovers into outlaws in Ireland. Then next up, your cordless phone may be subject to harmful EMFs. Toyota introduces robots that help patients walk again. Nationwide emergency alert system tests shortened to to 30 seconds because of public anxiety. Well, that was the point, was to induce fear, because I knew not everybody was going to know about it. It's GGN. Thank